Hello, it is almost 2026, so we need to talk about my reading goals for 2026. If you are new to the channel, you may not know how I do my reading goals. I like to add a little twist to them by making it a game. Last year, I had a game where as I read more and more towards my goals, I got points. And then at the end of the year or the beginning of 2026, I'm going to count up how many points I have and use those points to shop for prizes to enjoy, kind of as a celebration of my work. That's a game I've been playing throughout all of 2025, and it's been a great motivator to keep me on track with all my goals. So 2026, I decided to up the complexity of my game. We're still going to have points, we're still going to have prizes, and we're going to have some pretty awesome goals that I'm very excited about. So I want to take you through the goals first, and then we'll talk about how I earn points, and then we'll talk about prizes at the very end. This year I have 13 goals, which seems like a lot, but I do have some rules built in to where it's not going to be as much as it seems, but there are 13 things I would really love to accomplish this year with my reading. So the first one has to do with my physical shelves, and that is finish taping the shelves part 2. I'm calling it the final form. So I have 4 of these bookcases in my room. They're all the same size, 3 shelves, and almost every single one of them are double stacked like these. So there are books in the back and books in the front. I have been working on a series called Taming the Shelves where I read down my physical books to where they fit better on my shelves because I've just been collecting too many books and not reading enough of them, and it got a little overwhelming and messy, and I would prefer for my bookshelves to be single stacked, and I would like one shelf empty for library books and books I'm planning to read like really soon. So goal number 1 is to basically read down my TBR so far that I only have single stacked shelves and one singular shelf is open for library books. The second goal is to read at least 50% books I own and 50% books from the library until Taming the Shelves is complete. Once Taming the Shelves is complete, I can complete that goal and I can read as many library and physical books as I want because my shelves will then be where I want them to be. So as long as I'm kind of maintaining that with some physical and some library, whatever balance I get to at that point, I will keep them. So until that's complete, I want to be reading at least 50% books that I own. So I'm bringing over a goal from 2025. One of my 2025 goals was to finish was to finish 10 series that I started before 2024. I definitely did that. I even completed some more past that 10 series mark. I want to complete all the series that I started before 2026 in 2026. So everything that I started in 2025 or in the farther in the past, I want to kind of wrap up in 2026. The 2 caveats to this are Discworld and Redwall because those are very long series. Discworld is like 40 books. Redwall is like 21 books and is a reread for me. So I'm taking those at a slower pace and I'm fine not trying to like cram them into 1 year. The next goal is to read 10 books by authors I've read before and loved. I have a little list of them. I'm not going to like say which 10 I'm going to read from. I might think of some later that I haven't thought of and put on this list, but some of them are Brandon Sanderson. I still have his new release I haven't read. Tad Williams, Isabel Allende, John Steinbeck, Jane Austen, Stephen King, Jeff Vandermeer. Like, I have a lot of authors that I really love who have books that I haven't read, and I would like to at least get to 10 of them this year. 10 books by authors that I've read before and loved. I have about 16 completed series on my shelves currently. A lot of those are trilogies, but I would like to start half of the completed series that I own. So I have 16 series that I own the complete series. I would like to start at least 8 of them. I do not have to finish them in 2026, but I would like to start 8 of them, see if I want to continue. If not, unhaul them. I just want to be getting to the series that I have on my shelves that are complete, that I can just sit down and read. Like, why not do that? So that's going to be a goal of mine. Goal number 6 is to try 10 fantasy greats. So what I mean by this are fantasy books that are by authors that I haven't tried yet, or maybe just a series that I haven't tried yet that's considered to be like a great series or a really large, like important fantasy series. So some of these series might be First Law by Joe Abercrombie, Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. These big epic worlds and kind of pillars of fantasy, whether they're newer and it seems like the consensus is really strong that they're very good, or whether they're older and it's kind of like, this is where fantasy came from and I want to try it. So I want to read at least 10 books that kind of belong to those kinds of fantasy series. Again, I don't need to read the whole series. I just need to read 10 books within as many series as I want that I would consider to be fantasy greats. Goal number 7 should be a slam dunk, easy peasy one for me, and that's to read 25 books published before 2010. 2010 is kind of a random number I just picked out, like something that seems older. I always want to be making sure that I'm working through backlist alongside reading new books. I think in 2026 I'll have more time to read library books, and so I don't just want to always be going for new library books. I want to make sure I'm reading older books on my shelves, reading older books from the library, and I think 25 is a pretty good number. That should be at least like a quarter of my like full-length novel reading. So that's goal number 7. Goal number 8 is an interesting one, and I am not sure how it's going to go. So I track my reading on Storygraph, which is a site like Goodreads. It's more of like a stats tracking website than Goodreads has more of like a social element to it. And Storygraph, like there's a little bit of social stuff, but not as much on there yet. So my Storygraph TBR, that's where I add like any book that I want to read is on that TBR. So it's not just the books that I own, though a lot of the books that I own are on there. The number of books that is always on the Storygraph TBR kind of stresses me out, I think. So I decided this year to try to make it a goal to bring that number down significantly. I am not sure how it's going to go because I've kind of been tracking it month to month, and it's been up and down. And so the number that I have in mind is I would like to get the number of books on there below 700. Yes, 700. It's at 799 as of today, which is December 7th when I'm making this. So I've been kind of working at getting rid of some books, kind of looking at books, making sure I know about the books that are on there, making sure I want to read them. So I've actually been deleting quite a bit, and the number's been a little up and down. Let me tell you the numbers that I've tracked over the past few months. In January, because I was thinking of this goal in January of 2025, it was at 790. Then I checked it again in September. It was down to 773. Then it was 795 in October, 797 in November, and we're at 799 now. So it's been slowly creeping up. And this makes a little bit of sense because the end of the year is when a lot of people are looking forward to the following year and talking about their exciting releases. And so I'll be watching their videos and I'm like, that sounds really good. I'm going to go add it to the TBR. So I'm adding a lot to the TBR in the final months of the year. But I would like at the end of next year to have it get below 700 or just at any point. If it drops to 699 at any point, I'm going to call this goal completed because I just want to be making big dents. What I'm seeing, based on kind of having tracked it sort of for a year, I didn't get all the months in there, but I tracked it at some points during the year. It's basically like starting high, going down a little bit, and then slowly creeping up. So I think what that means is I need to really focus on like being careful with the books that I'm putting on that list, checking out books, like reading a chapter if I'm really unsure if I'll like that book. Like maybe try a chapter of it before I put it on the list as a for sure want to read. And like, I'm not super precious about this list. It's just whenever I see a book, I like to add it in there and it can just stay there until I get around to reading it. But the number of 800 books is so overwhelming. It's like I can't even fully look through all the books that are on there in a reasonable amount of time. It takes me so long to even look at every book that's on there. So there are books that are getting lost in there because there's just so much and I can't keep track of what is like a medium interest book to a high interest book. So bringing the number down a little bit would just make me feel a lot better. So that's going to be like a really tough goal, but one I hope I can manage. Goal number 9 is possibly my most exciting and my most intimidating goal. And that's to run what I'm calling Raven's Rest Readathon. I have been planning a readathon for most of 2025. I think I maybe started planning it in 2024. I'm not sure. But I have this really fun narrative style readathon that I want to run where you're actually like reading a story, putting together a mystery, going on a quest to like save the day. And I think it's a really unique concept for a readathon. I haven't seen one quite like it, and I would like to actually try to run it and let everyone else in on the fun. I'm in the processes of writing the story currently. It's very time consuming. It's a lot of writing, but I'm really enjoying it. I am excited to share with the world what I've been working on. So at some point in 2026, I would like to run the readathon. Originally, I thought I was going to run it in February. I'm also looking at maybe April, maybe August. It just kind of depends on life, how fast I can get things done. I kind of want to work with my sister to get some art made for it, just so there's some images to go with the words. So I'm not exactly sure when it's going to happen, but it will be happening at some point in 2026. Oh, the next one is a big goal too. So this is number 10. This one is to read 3 intimidating classics. So last year, I challenged myself to read 10 classics and I could pick any ones I want. And I picked easier ones or ones that I was reading for an in-person book club, so I kind of like had to. So I would like to read 3 of like the big ones on my shelves, the ones I look at and go, maybe someday, but not today. I would like to pick 3 of them and read them this year. So some of the ones that I'm thinking of that come to mind would be Les Mis, Middlemarch, Don Quixote, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. John Steinbeck is one of my favorite authors, and I would really love to get to East of Eden, but I haven't yet. There's so many. I have quite a few. The Silmarillion by Tolkien. I would love to read that one. But they're intimidating and they're difficult, so I tend to put them off and kind of kick the can down the road. So this year we're going to tackle 3 of them. The next one is to focus on my own books by making sure that I either read or try and DNF or just unhaul 100 books from my collection. So this year in 2025, I have really been tracking, how many books I'm trying, but I'm not catching like all of them. There have been some books where I try like a page and I unhaul it, and I'm not necessarily keeping track of that on my spreadsheet. So this year I would like to make sure that I basically read or DNF or unhaul 100 books from my TBR. I think that's going to help me with my Taming the Shelves goal. I'm not sure if 100 books would get me to where I want to be, but it would be about a third or more, I think, of the books I own. I think I own like 250 books right now that are unread. So if I read 100, I'd be left with 150-ish, plus any books that I bring home as well. So I would like to focus on this goal. I would like to do 100 of them because I'm going to read some. Some are going to be tiny, some are going to be big. Some I'm going to try and just DNF right away. They won't work for me and I'll pass them along. I just want to keep this goal to be like a real challenge for me this year. Number 12 is more of a fun goal and an easier goal to beat because it's only 5 books long. That's to read 5 books from authors that I haven't read from before that I'm very excited to read from. I have a big old list on here of authors that I'm excited to try for the first time that I've heard such good things about that I would really like to get to, but I kind of just keep passing them up. Robin Hobb's probably one of the top ones for me. Deanna Raybourn, Richard Swan, Jen Lyons, Andrea Hairston. Like, there's so many authors that I've seen multiple of their books and thought, man, they write such interesting things, and I just haven't gotten to them yet. So I'd like to try out 5 new authors that I'm really hyped for. And my final goal is a fantasy goal, because I'm a fantasy girly. I would like to read 12 books set in epic fantasy worlds. What do I mean by an epic fantasy world? I mean a series that is either 4 or more books long or a series of series. So what I mean by this, The Wheel of Time is a very long 13, 14 book long series. I could read books from that series because it's just such a long series. Or I could read from something like The Realm of the Elderlings or the Austen Ard World books from Tad Williams. So those would be series of series. So with Tad Williams, you have Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and then you have some other books set in the world of Austen Ard that kind of follow from that. Same thing with The Realm of the Elderlings. You have the Farseer trilogy, and then a bunch of other trilogies and a quartet thrown in there that make up a bigger series. So I would like to read 12 books from giant fantasy series like that. Some other things that I would think of adding in would be urban fantasy series, because some of those can be like really long, like 18 books long. And I do like a good urban fantasy when it's written well and the world is interesting and very like fantastical. And I would like to try some urban fantasy series that have been on my TBR shelves on Storygraph for a long time. So something like that. Basically just not being scared of tackling big series, big fantasy worlds, just diving in and trying them out because they aren't going to read themselves. I have to decide to do it at some point. So those are my 13 goals. Now we're going to talk about points, and then we're going to end this book by talking about the really fun thing, the prizes. How am I going to get points for this? At the end of the year, any goal that I've completed, or if there's a goal that I can complete mid-year, I will get 500 points for completing each goal. That's kind of the second biggest way to earn points. There's one other bigger way, and that has to do with the game I made. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So I have a couple other ways that I'm going to be earning points. So based on the books that I read, at the end of the year, I'm going to find the longest series that I read in 2026, and I'm going to get 100 points per book in that series. So if I read a series with 6 books in it, and I started it in 2026 and finished it in 2026, I would get 100 points for each of those books, each of those 6 books, so 600 points total. If the longest series I start and complete is a trilogy, I would get 100 points for each of the 3 books. So this is kind of a, how far do I want to push myself with some of those big series? I'm going to get 50 points for each series that I complete. So if I read a book and it's finishing a series, I'm going to earn 50 points for it. But if I start a series and DNF this series, I'm not going to give myself 50 points for DNFing this series. I only want to get the points for reading the whole thing. I am going to get 20 points for every book that I read that's over 500 pages because I want to encourage myself to read the chunky books because I own a lot of them and I often don't want to pick them up because they're really long. I'm going to get 10 points if I own the book and 10 points if I'm reading a book for a book club because those are both habits that I want to support, joining in my friends' book clubs and reading books that I own. And then I have some personal goals that will also give me points just because reading isn't everything and I have some personal goals. So every day that I meet my steps goal, I will get 1 point. And every workout that I complete throughout the year will also earn me another point. So those like kind of health and movement goals are going to be in there, just boosting my reading and also to make sure that reading isn't like taking over every part of my life. And then I'm going to get 20 points for each hour that I write per week. For those of you that don't know, I would love to be a published author at some point, but I found that this year it's been really challenging to make a writing schedule. So I would like to kind of gamify the writing and allow myself to have some incentive in writing by having it work towards my reading goals. So I'll get 20 points for every hour that I choose to write throughout the year. There is one other way to earn points, and that's to complete my game boards, which you'll find out in the next video that comes out. So if you're not subscribed and you're interested, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll find out when my next video comes out, which will be all about my TBR game that I'll be playing throughout 2026. And it will kind of contain the second part of how I earn points in this reading goals game. Those are the ways that I'm going to be earning points. So let's talk about the prizes. Some of these are prizes that are the same from last year and some are new ones. So let's start with the ones that are repeats from the 2025 version. These are just ones that I think are easy prizes for me to do. They're fairly accessible and are just fun. The first one is to do a bookshop crawl. This is where I take myself and I go visit as many bookshops as I can in a day, and I allow myself to be a little spendy and to enjoy being around books, browsing bookstores, supporting local indie bookstores, and just having a fun bookish day. I have a library crawl. This is where I do the same thing as I do with books, except with libraries, and I allow myself to go around and visit different libraries in my area. I'm lucky to be in a place where there are quite a few within not too long of a driving distance, and I can go check out books from different libraries within my library system. And then another one from last year is a library request spree. This is basically requesting books that I really want to read, but I don't see them physically at my library, and I don't often request books from the library. I don't know why. I just kind of wait to come across it. But this is kind of my chance to be like, go crazy and just request a bunch of books that you want. And I get to go then pick up, like it's Christmas, all the books at my library that I've requested. And I can like read them and have a great time reading some like highly anticipated books. And then I've added 2 new ones for this year. So the first one is having a cozy reading night/day at home. So this is where I plan a special evening with snacks and drinks and candles, maybe a craft, and I just like read for hours. And I try to focus on being able to only read and just have like a afternoon/evening, whatever time works that I can make it happen in, just to enjoy books and read. And then the final one is the most extravagant one. So we'll see if it'll be able to happen in 2027. But that is to take a cozy reading trip. So this would be taking a little like weekend trip or something like that by myself, staying somewhere and taking a bunch of books along with me and just having a little weekend getaway by myself where I can be in like peace and quiet and I can read and rejuvenate and enjoy maybe a little bit of nature and just relax, go somewhere new, and my husband will be very kind and take care of all the animals here while I go do that. So those are my 5 prizes that I'm working towards. Now let me tell you about how I earn the prizes with the points. So this year we have a little game system that goes with the points to be able to kind of build up our prizes. So the first thing is I have to unlock each reward. I can't just take a reward, I have to unlock it. So whenever I get 500 points, I can choose to unlock a reward. So for example, if I wanted the library request spree, I would spend 500 points to unlock it. Now, I have broken down each prize into different elements, and each element is on a card. And sort of these are building blocks to kind of make that prize happen. So let's look at the library request one just as an example. So the first card says, request a book I have never seen at my library. So if I get this card after I've unlocked the library prize, then next year when I'm sort of redeeming the prize, I would get to do this. Another example would be requesting a new release, requesting a book that I'm hyped for. And every time I sort of gain a card, I'm making the prize bigger. And I have to unlock each prize. So let's look at another one. Let's look at the bookshop crawl. So I have to unlock it. Once I've unlocked it, if I've unlocked multiple prizes, I actually shuffle these cards all together, and I'm picking randomly when I'm buying a new addition to my prizes. I'm basically picking from a deck of all the prizes that I've unlocked, and I'm choosing cards that like add to them, except for I don't know what I'm gonna get. So if I had like shuffled these up and picked randomly, I'd go, oh, buy a book to start that day. This goes with the bookshop crawl. So then this would be sort of starting to build up my bookshop crawl and make it bigger. So maybe I would get this one, which is visit one bookshop. So then on that day, I would get to visit one bookshop and then buy a book and start it that day. Maybe I get one of these, which is get 5 books. So then I'm allowed to get 5 books if I want to when I'm out shopping. Here's another visit a bookshop. So if I get multiple, I can then like plan a bigger bookshop crawl. This one is dinner. So I would get to stay out until dinner time and have dinner out at a shop. And so this might be a little confusing, but I promise it'll make sense once I start buying things. So you're gonna wanna watch for my TBR Game videos because I'll be using these cards at the end of those videos when I'm unlocking prizes and buying these. So the bookshop crawl, each piece costs 300 points. Whereas the library request, because it's like a simpler reward, it doesn't cost me any money or anything, these are only 100 each. So if I have 500 points, I can choose how to allocate them. Maybe I would rather buy 2 of these, so I'm gonna get one and then save up another 100 points to get another one. So I want to be kind of strategic about how I'm spending my points throughout the year, and the prize will slowly grow, and I'll show it on my TBR Game videos. At the end of the video, I'll spend all my points and kind of show you what I'm adding to the different prizes, and we can see them like growing over time. So I'll definitely have to like pick which prize I'm adding for. I'm not going to shuffle them all together. They're going to be in separate piles. I think I said that backwards earlier. They're going to be in separate piles, and so I'll have to decide like, okay, I'm going to spend 100 points. I'm going to mix up the library request spree pile. I'm going to pick one randomly, and then I'll be like, ooh, request a book by a favorite author. And then I get to add that to the prize, and we'll slowly make it more epic and fun as time goes on. Hopefully that all makes sense. I tried to explain it well, and I found it was more confusing trying to explain it than I thought, but I promise if you watch the TBR game videos, it will all make sense. I will walk us through every step when we do it, and it will make sense, I promise. So those are my goals, how I earn points, and the prizes. If you are hyped for this project, please subscribe. And then the next video that comes out will be explaining my TBR game, which is going to be like a big hitter for earning me points. The TBR game is how I can earn some big points, and the TBR game videos are going to be where you see me doing all the stuff for the goals, checking off goals, playing the game, reading the books, reviewing the books, earning the points, and then spending the points. So those videos are going to be like jam-packed with all of this stuff. So if you're interested in keeping up with the reading goals and this crazy silly game I've made for myself, you're going to want to stick around and look for those TBR game videos. The TBR game is going to be called Odyssey of Pages. There are a lot of TBR games out there, and so it took me such a long time to find a name that wasn't like super close to everyone else's, and I'm so obsessed with Odyssey of Pages. I love it so much. Stay tuned for the next video, probably not that far because I have a lot of videos that I'm kind of cramming into the end of December, so you probably don't have to wait that long to get it, but I will see you in that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.